All right, greetings from the Dark Continent. Conscious Caracal here, or Adams van Sail, and tonight I'm talking about a very pressing matter for many South Africans, and that is the tobacco industry and the regulations and draconian regulations at that have been put on it during the extensive lockdown that we've seen in the country for the past over 100 days. So tonight I have Herman Roos with me. He is a South African tobacco farmer, and he is currently on a mission to get to save the tobacco industry from this iron grip of the government. So welcome very much, Herman.
Adams, thank you, and welcome to all the viewers, and thank you for having me on your channel. Most of the viewers probably know me. For those who don't know me, I'm a small tobacco farmer in the flue-cured industry up in the north near Brits. And as most of you can see that my background is not the same, it's because I'm down in Oudtshoorn. I'm assisting my old mentor and agronomist who taught me tobacco in a bit of research into using air explosions for nematode control. So that's why I'm here in Oudtshoorn. It's cold, it's wet. I'm not used to it, but I'm enjoying it.
And maybe give us some background in regards to why you had to leave your home and fly all the way down to the Western Cape. What's so important about your mission there?
Aaron's, in nematode control in tobacco is quite a bit of a problem because it affects your plant's health, it affects your plant's quality, eventually leaf quality. And with this project, I've been doing helping my mentor with research into how you can use air as a method, as a non-chemical in a non-invasive method. And so I came down to help him, and just with some practical and theoretical things that he's testing, I'm just helping him. So yes, that is for us is very important, because if we can get to a point where there's no chemical use in the nematode control, and when Henry can get it right to use that, that means less use of chemicals. That would make the tobacco even better out of a carcinogenic point of view.
All right, but that personal venture of yours aside, tomorrow is a very big court case, a court case that might define where the tobacco industry finds itself in a few months. Could you give us some context to that and some background in regards to what tomorrow's court case is about and what your involvement is there?
The basic lowdown of this court case is that everybody knows is that to get the ban lifted on the sale of tobacco products, processed tobacco products. As BATSA is involved, Saai is involved, tax justice is involved. So it is a huge case. And the last time when I went through those documents, reading through the court case, I only went to like page 80, and I was already up to my ears in information, because I'm not a lawyer, so most of the term and jargon I don't understand. But it boils down to, if this court case, if the judges judge against us, this will mean a direct influence on the future of our civil liberty rights. As we are in a country where we have a democratic right to choose what we want to do, and the use of cigarettes is not illegal. It's not an illegal substance. The use of alcohol is not an illegal substance like cocaine and other hard drugs that can. And if the judges cannot see, and we hope and pray that they see that it is not just impacting on the industry, but also it is a direct violation of our civil rights as South Africans under a democratic constitution. And the minister just blatantly took away those rights under this Disaster Management Act, which gave it the power. But I personally feel that the minister is more of a personal vendetta than it is really about COVID-19, because they are admitting, and I think the guys have seen it on Twitter, that there's no real correlation between serious COVID cases and COVID cases versus smokers. And if we've seen the stats over the past few weeks, people haven't stopped smoking. People didn't stop smoking and say, I'm not going to smoke anymore because this is going to be a COVID-19 threat to me. People are sharing more cigarettes. And in this case, we are hoping and we are praying and that our courts can see that this is not, how can I put it? It's an impact on our civil rights. And this is a choice smokers made. They made that choice. It is their own decision what they want to use. It's similar to a person who eats too much sugar. He knows he's going to get probability of the diabetes. Yes, smoking is dangerous. It is bad for our health, but still it stays my choice. And as a tax-paying citizen, I think I have the right to make that decision.
But maybe more something close to home in regards to you as a tobacco farmer. And in terms of the effect this is going to have on your industry. Firstly, can you just give the audience an idea of how big is the South African tobacco industry actually?
Well, if they've been following lifttheban.sa.org, they would see that there's roughly around 300,000 people directly involved in this industry whose jobs are at risk, right? Bringing it down to the agricultural sector on the farm, I have 40 families that's dependent during peak season on my production, right? And I only farm 15 hectares. I'm small, but 40 families are dependent on earning an income from my farm. And most of these families are third generation. So if my production is cut by say 50% or by 80%, or even if they cut me by 10 or 20%, some of these workers will be out of a job. And if you take 8,000 farm workers, let's for say worst case scenario, half of them lose their job, 4,000 people. That is roughly an income of 1.6 million rand per year. All right. An average family, because most of the families, the husband and the wife is working on the farm, they earn roughly around 80 to 90,000 a year. All right. So take that amount of money away. Now, these people don't spend at your chain stores. They don't spend this money going to a Woolies or a Pick and Pay. These guys spend their money on local and micro economies. They send this money back to their families, to the grannies who's looking after the children. And that money is spent on the local economy. And people must realize, taking 1.6 million rand out of a local community is a major blow to that economy. Now we can increase this number. Let's say, for instance, we take, according to Business Tech, the average South African outside of agriculture earns roughly an average salary of 21,000 rand. Right? Let's say 50,000 people lose their jobs of the said 300,000 people working in this industry. Go and do that mathematics and let's see what amount. It's about 107 million rand per year that's taken out of circulation. And this is what people must start realizing. Everything starts by non-sales and it boils down. And once it reaches us as farmers, I have production costs. I need to go, some of the farmers need to go to the bank and get a production loan to produce their tobacco. And if they cut the production, because we are now applying for our loans, we are now already busy with our seedlings for the next year. And if our production is cut, who's going to pay back that loan? That means no margin of error for us. That means we cannot afford a hailstorm. We cannot afford pests and like red spider mite or whitefly attacking us. And those things are part and parcel of farming. And people must start realizing that this is not just about the smoker. It is about 300,000 people directly involved. Now, what people also must realize is along this value chain, there's chemical companies that are going to be impacted. There are fertilizer companies that's going to be impacted. There's companies that produce the boxes that we pack our tobacco in that's going to be impacted. So once you start tallying up the amount of people that's going to be directly and indirectly impacted, the guy who drives from the factory taking the cigarettes to the shops, that guy might lose his job. Yes, he's directly involved. But what about the person who's selling the cigarettes, the spaza shop owner? Suddenly he's out of money. He is not going to stop selling cigarettes because there's a demand for the product. And this is where the illicit trade comes in. They will still supply those spaza shops. But now there's no excise money I'm being paid. And it's not my product that's being sold. And by my product not being sold, somebody along the line and somebody on my farm might lose his job.
But that's the thing, is that as a lot of people in the comments have been mentioning, is that there's this interconnected web of industries that rely on each other. The tobacco industry, you as a tobacco farmer, you just create an output that is an input for many other industries as well. And that's the thing, is that what we're seeing here currently is that, and not even to mention the ripple effect of all those employees losing their income. But now, I mean, you can also go into the foreign exchange angle and looking at the amount. I mean, tobacco is one of the big exports as well. Not all of it is used as inputs in South Africa. It's a cash crop. So you get that foreign exchange from it as well. And now you've taken that out of the equation too. So it's absolutely just a disaster. But then, Herman, that's where it gets interesting, because then you have to start asking the question, the government must be aware of from a cigarette angle, the amount of tax they're losing to this. They must be aware of the amount of foreign exchange that the economy is being deprived of. They must be aware of the fact that people are still going to smoke and that only 1 in 10 smokers have quit during the lockdown. They must be aware of the illegal black market being absolutely flourishing. What is the reasoning behind it then? I mean, they can't be that stupid. There has to be a reason. I mean, these oaks aren't stupid. I think they're quite smart in some, especially in politics and in politicking, and in their ideology. So what do you speculate is behind all of this nonsense?
And the strange thing about this is SATA, who is our representing body, did the research. Yusuf Abramji from Tax Justice South Africa wrote an open letter to the president stating all the facts. All of them sent the facts to Minister Dlamini Zuma. Sorry. President Cyril Ramaphosa knows all these facts. But let's go back to 11th August of 2000. And as reported by Health E-News, Dr. Chabalala Msimang, on the 11th of August in 2000, won the Anti-Tobacco Award in America. And she stated the following: we as a ministry are committed to creating a smoke-free society to improve all, and listen to these words, all the life of all citizens. She said this was not possible in the face of a corporate-induced epidemic. Back then, Dr. Chabalala Msimang, when she was Minister of Health, already called us an epidemic, stating that they want to improve the lives of all citizens. Now, guys, let's face it. We were locked down in March and promised that they are going to use 30 days or that time to get everything ready for hospitals, to get ready for the oncoming wave. Now it's coming out. Millions have been squandered on contracts for PPE, ventilators, PPE being dumped in Centurion in the river that was destined for hospitals.
Maybe just for people that don't know, can you just explain what is PPE?
As personal protection equipment.
Yeah.
Now, all of this is dumped. We've read about COVID tests being found next to the road that's been dumped there. Now, if what Dr. Chabalala Msimang said was right, they wanted to improve the lives of all citizens, then why didn't they start by providing to the poorest of the poor the proper hospitalization that is on standard with the private sector? Why can't they provide them with proper clinics? But the problem is, that's all words, and it ended up in nothing. Just the excise duty. If they take the excise duty and money made from the alcohol and tobacco industry, they can run all hospitals in South Africa on par with the private sector. But the problem is, as we've seen in the past 2 weeks, the corruption that was going on with the PPE tenders. Ministers and their sons and daughters getting contracts. Where's that money going? But they had the audacity in 2000. And look, the brainchild of a smoke-free society was that of Dr. Dlamini Zuma. The new Tobacco Control Act that we saw first being proposed in 2000 was the brainchild of Dr. Dlamini Zuma, Minister of COGTA. Now I'm asking this question. If a minister has a personal view on a certain situation, under our democratic elected right, if I have a personal problem as a politician with alcohol, I am not allowed to impose my personal opinion on those of the people. What has happened now? And I'm asking this question, and I wish I could get an answer. Isn't what's happening now with the ban on cigarettes and alcohol a personal view of a minister, or is it truly about COVID-19? Because nowhere can they give us substantial, factual, and scientific proof up until now in South Africa that the smoking has contributed to more worst cases in COVID-19. Prove it to me. Put it on paper. But I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, Herman, everyone in the live chat is definitely feeling your anger and sharing in your righteous indignation. But now, seeing as your cause is going to make potentially a lot of progress tomorrow, how are you feeling about the court case? Just you personally, not in terms of wanting to give people hope or optimism, just your personal feeling on it.
I think we've got a very, very strong court case. The reason for that is a lot of parties came together, realizing the situation that we are in. This is not just BATSA, LTP. There is, as they've said, there is a very long list of applicants in this case. There are smokers, there's drug users that explain the situation. There's tax justice. Southern Africa Agri Initiative is involved as from the farmers, representing the farmers. So the list is ongoing. There are spaza shop owners being represented. The Black Farmers Association is represented. So all of us are stating our cases. And I believe we have a very strong case. But in the end, it will be up to a full panel of judges deciding the fate of where we will go in the future. I think with Weber Wenzel, and I must commend them, taking on this case, they took on a Goliath. But I still think Weber Wenzel will be the David with the slingshot taking down this Goliath.
Right, but as I always say, when it comes to these types of policies from the ANC, when people can't make sense of it, just ask yourself a very simple question. Does this solution of the ANC give power to the government and grant it more power, or does it take power away from government? And your answer to that type of hypothetical question to yourself will always help you explain and make sense of these types of policies. All the policies we've seen from the ANC during the lockdown that were initiated and established were policies intended to give power to the government and to grant the government power. There wasn't a single policy during the lockdown that was used or established by the ANC and utilized by the ANC that took away power from the government. I think that should tell you everything.
Alan, talking about the policies, let's take this back one step back again to me as a tobacco farmer. Let's take this back to a farming level. When the lockdown was initiated, the Minister of Police, Becky Cele, banned all public patrol or GPF patrollies. Sorry guys for my Afrikaans in that sense. No citizens had the right to do patrols in their areas for safety and security purposes. All right. And as the first 30 days of the lockdown progressed, we saw more and more crimes. We saw more and more violent crimes happening, not on farms. We've seen more, and the police couldn't handle this because now they were chasing after cigarette smugglers and they weren't chasing after criminals. Right. So the police had a full-time job trying to balance the whole act. Right. Now my question is, these citizen community patrols are still banned to do their patrols. If this policy that they are implementing now, if I, for instance, say, okay, 80% of my farm workers need to go and find a new job. Now, it is not just the tobacco industry that is affected by the shrinking of the economy. Mike Schuessler, Magnus Heistek, and these guys are talking about in shrinking of our economy between 8 to 14%. Right. That means somewhere along the line, agriculture is going to shrink. Now this guy's without a job. So 1 or 2% of those that have lost their jobs on the tobacco farms will be lucky enough because they are probably more skilled. They are tractor drivers. They've got a license, so they will probably be absorbed into the system. But those that grew up in the rural areas where education was poor, that can't properly write their names, all right, due to a lack of basic education, all right, he will not get a job. And any husband or father that sits in front of his house and is looking at his children and seeing them starving is going to make a plan. And on whose farm is he going to make that plan? He's going to come to my farm because he knows it. He knows how I move. He knows how everything works. And he's going to start stealing. First, he'll steal for the pot, which won't have a major impact. But as time progresses, and with any criminal activity, we know that there's no hardened criminal in this country that suddenly started stealing and robbing a bank. I've never heard of a bank robber on his first day of planning, walking into a bank and robbing a bank. No, he started stealing little bits and progressed up till the time he became a bank robber. And that is what's going to happen. And eventually these guys will be sucked into criminal activities. They'll be sucked into gangs. They will be sucked into all types of forms of cartels. And he needs to feed his family. And somewhere along the line, he'll probably get shot, arrested. And who's going to support that family then? And this is what we beg of President Cyril Ramaphosa, to look at this. You've now stopped us from patrolling our communities for the safety. This is not just for the safety of me as a farmer. It is my workers that's working for me that I'm providing for. It's for their safety as well, because they will be impacted by this as well. And I need to look after them. So the community patrol is not just for the farmers. It is for those that are less fortunate, that cannot afford a security company. They cannot afford a loan. We are their security company. We as Community Policing Forum are their security company. And this is what they must realize. And now he's off my farm. Who's going to help him when his child is sick? I've had many children on my farm. They're sick, 10, 12 o'clock at night. The parents come to me. And as my duty, as I'm a father myself, I make sure, and sometimes I take those children to hospital myself. I've had workers that was robbed and stabbed, seriously wounded. I didn't wait for an ambulance. And there are multiple of farmers that does the same. We make sure that our people who provide for us are safe. And are we now willing, sorry, and I'm asking the president, are you willing, President Cyril Ramaphosa, tonight, to take away that little bit of security that these people have? Are you willing to take it away? Literally tearing it away from a father who's supporting a 2, 3, or 4-year-old child.
But seeing as you've mentioned the threat of theft and criminality, you as someone on the inside in the industry, has there been occurrences of theft of your stock and of your,
yes.
of your tobacco product?
Aaron, as I said today, we were visiting the Air-Cured tobacco farms where, as I said, we were doing research into nematodes. And a funny, interesting thing is we visited one farmer's shed where they literally went in at night and they stole. It is not a few kilograms. I'm talking hundreds of kilograms that these guys came in and stole, because there's not all of them can afford these 45 to 100 rand a packet of illegal cigarettes. The poor community are now looking for tobacco from somewhere. And they start stealing. Even in the Flourishing, our dark tobacco was stolen. One of the agronomists from Skynstrift went to a place and he found a bag of fake BATSA tobacco. It wasn't BATSA. The bag was faked, and it was sweepings that was put in. They're making between 500 to 1,000 rand a kilo on that tobacco that's stolen. Now, how fair is that? For instance, to a farmer, a small-scale farmer that produces 2 hectares, roughly between 8,000, 6 to 8,000, maybe 10,000 kilos. If you steal 1,000 kilos from a farmer who's a small scale who produces 10,000 kilos, you're stealing 10% of his income. And if he's making a 15% profit on that total harvest, you're leaving him with 5%. How is that guy eventually going to get ahead? Especially on our upcoming black farmers. These guys are hit hard by this stupidity. Because the guy who's stealing, as I said, he probably stole for the pot first, for his own use. Then his friend came and said, oh, I'll give you 50 rand, get me a few leaves. And suddenly there's a lucrative market being created. And he's stealing from his own people, who's also upcoming. How fair is that? Are we so much willing to concentrate and create criminality from good citizens that are not criminals? And that's the question I'm asking tonight. Is this government really going to go down that road?
And I see, Herman, we talked about this earlier at the beginning of the show, but I think it's such an important point that we can go over it again. Kermit asks, how hard is the tobacco ban impacting supporting industries? So, Herman, if you could just explain that again, I think this is so important.
Like the major impact, I'll say again, and I'll start with chemical companies, because I explained it to guys earlier on the other stream, but I'll explain again. Chemical companies do research into fungicides, pesticides, herbicides, right? And these things are specialized. People must realize when we use a chemical today, not back in the 1960s where they had DDT, right? They created DDT, it killed off mosquitoes and lice on your head, and they sprayed it on humans and they said it's safe for humans. Years later, They found that DDT is it's a carcinogenic. There's other problems that it caused. Today, a chemical company, for instance, say nematode control, they have to prove that that chemical is safe for human consumption. It's not a carcinogen, or the carcinogenic levels are low. It is safe for the environment, and it is the impact that it will have is only for its intended use. Now, that research costs them millions, and it can take years for them before they get a registration. Now, suddenly, if an agricultural sector starts shrinking due to effects like bans or government not looking after there, these companies will start looking at this and saying, oh, chemical XYZ is not feasible for us to produce that chemical, export it to South Africa, and because the profit margins on those things are so low, and they need to continue research, rather invest and focus on another chemical that is more profitable for them, that will have them getting better sorry guys, better types of chemicals in the field, right? And if we lose, for instance, our chemicals that's registered for our markets, the impact will be directly on other industries in the agricultural sector, because most of our chemicals are cross-used. And that's what people must understand. It's this chemical sales rep that's losing his income. It is the fertilizer sales rep that's now losing an income. And along the line of that factory, that company, there are people losing their jobs as well. That's the indirect impact. And it's not just chemicals and fertilizer. There are multiple facets. There's the tractor sales, spare parts sales, diesel, oil. I can continue till tomorrow morning on people who are directly and indirectly involved.
So you're saying there's definitely a very big ripple effect that's going on, and people don't really realize. They think it's just an innocent ban on cigarettes and it's going to save people, and it's we're preventing lung cancer. But in the meantime, you're not only taking bread off the tables of tobacco farmers and the workers on those farmers, but people that work in the adjacent industries to that farming community.
Yes, that's 100% right. Sorry?
No, please continue.
There's a topic we missed when we talked about earlier about the ban on tobacco, and this is quite a topic I want to touch on tonight. Tobacco and alcohol was banned, all right? But not the use of cannabis.
Before you continue, Herman, I see in the comments someone pointed it out.
Okay,
so an opinion said, who would have thought that the time would come when dagga was legal but tobacco illegal? Yeah, so please, I think it's the perfect timing for that conversation there.
Funny enough, never did the minister gazette or talk about the legality and illegality and the ban on cannabis or dagga. And funny enough, on the 3rd of March, 3rd of August, 2020, IOL reported that Judge Ingrid Opperman decriminalized the use and possession of cannabis by children. Hang on. Judge Ingrid Opperman just said a week ago that children can possess and use dagga, which is a hallucinogenic compound, which causes unknown effects in children that we are not sure how it will affect their development. Hang on. Decriminalized in children. Now, how can a judge in South Africa with a clear mind say you're not allowed to criminalize a child who uses this product or this illegal substance that affects his mentality, it affects his psychology, it affects his development? Police are not allowed to touch him. But by the grace, if I walk down the street with 10 packets of cigarettes, I can be charged for illegal possession of tobacco. I can even be charged for trading in an illegal product. And this is where we should now, as South Africans, start to come together. And we should start asking these questions. How can you legalize a drug that causes people to hallucinate, causes people to commit, and which is used in many of violent crimes that's committed? A drug that's used by these criminals openly. You allow them to smoke it at home. They trade it. They're still trading dagga, but there's nothing being done by that. I don't see the police every week showcasing kilos and tons of dagga that they've confiscated. Lately, the only thing I've been seeing is how they've confiscated alcohol, 1 bottle, 2 bottles from a person, 5, 6 cartons of cigarettes from a person. And I'm like asking, but where is the hardcore drugs? Why aren't you showcasing us your fight against those products that are more harmful to our children? Tik, crystal meth is causing havoc in our children. And how many schools have reported that crystal meth is a problem with the children? But instead of using this lockdown to fight against these hardcore drugs and also crime, they've so become focused on arresting 230,000 citizens in South Africa for infringing and breaking the lockdown rules. What does this say about our civil liberties and rights? And that's what I'm getting back to at the beginning. A child at this stage has more rights to use dagga than I have as a tobacco farmer and a smoker. How is that possible that we got to this point in South Africa? How can a government clearly, with an open mind, look at this and say, this is right?
Yeah, but at the same time, Herman, there's also another disturbing development with this whole thing, and that seems that it seems that the biggest allies of the government is corporate South Africa, who just bend their knees in front of the government and just beg them to.
Sorry, I just seem to have lost my whole audience. Okay, no, I'm just kidding, guys. Just to break the ice here a little bit. Sorry, Aaron, you were saying?
No, I was saying one of the disturbing developments with this whole lockdown thing and with all these bans is the fact that the biggest ally of the government, the biggest chummy, seems to be corporate South Africa, who seems to be all too glad to bend the knee in front of the government. And now it's left to organizations like Saai and farmers like yourself to fight the fight. What are your thoughts on that?
You see, okay, Aaron, let's get back to the Tobacco Control Act that was started by the current Dr. Dlamini Zuma. Unfortunately, if you put yourself in, let's put it in our industry, all right? The Tobacco Control Act is already very strict. There has been rumors going around saying they want to enforce plain packaging. Now, look, if a car company has the right to brand their vehicles, right? That's what sells, is your brand name. It's your name, it's your logo, it's your image. And they want to bring in plain packaging, right? How do you negotiate this difficult situation with a government that actually wants to ban the use of tobacco products? They want to put so much pressure on you as a company. You're not allowed to advertise anymore. They've taken that right away, but other companies are allowed to advertise. They took your right away to sell openly in public. It's now, as you will see, most cigarettes are in small areas. It's closed. Most of the areas, it's closed out. They want to force you to use plain packaging, olive green, and probably put pictures of people's lungs hanging out of their chest, somebody's toe that's rotten off. They want us to force you to use these things. Now, to directly fight them is you have to weigh the scales and checks and balances in this case. And I think corporate South Africa is a bit, they sort of understand what government can do with legislation. And what people don't understand is, although the ANC doesn't have 2/3 majority in parliament, they still have the EFF and the smaller parties that can support them on changing legislation. So what do you do? You know, which shoe must you put on, the left or the right? And that's why I must commend BAT in this sense. And then we'll get back to Saai, which is very important to me. Saai is a very, very important part. They took this fight on, whereas other corporate companies, I think, is sort of still trying to negotiate the rapids in the river. And these rapids in this river came in a time when nobody were thinking of what was going on. Right? You mentioned Saai, and I must honestly say there are very few organizations in South Africa that supports the small family farmer. Now, I got involved with Saai was by accident. There was a situation, and somebody mentioned to me to phone Francois Rousseau. Right? I phoned him, and for the love of me today, I tried to think why it was, probably for some stupid reason. And over the last year, we sort of, you know, I'll contact him and we'll ask questions here and there. And when the court case came up, and Francois phoned me and said, Herman, we want to represent you and the small family farmers. And Saai literally went out of their way. I sat in Pretoria at Herter and Spies, going through documents, and Francois would send me his affidavits. And to think that a organization that's so small is willing to fight for my rights blew me out of the water. And I think in the future of South Africa, for us as small farmers, as family farmers, these type of organizations that's still willing to stand with us, no matter how difficult it is, no matter what, even if the outcome looks dark, they still stand next to you. They still stand behind you. They still stand in front of you. And that must I commend Saai and these guys for taking us on a product that's deemed the dog of the World Health Organization. We are considered the scourge of the earth because we are directly killing people. We are basically selling a poison. And these guys stood up and said, you know what? We're still going to stand with it. And for those organizations that out there that still care about the family unity, please get behind us. Get behind the wine industry and support us. Because in the end, if the stress levels, and this is a very important part that people should understand, it is not just a physical thing that's happening. There's a psychological thing that's happening as well. The pressure of crime, farm attacks, economy that's shrinking, higher input costs, all of these things are packing and stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking on this camel's back. And then one morning, you hear of another father that left his family alone. And when I say left alone, I mean he shot himself, he killed himself. And these things will become more and more relevant as we continue, as the financial pressure builds, as the psychological pressure. There's no valve to stand and shout it out.
Hmm.
Because people do not want to listen to your problems. Because they have their own problems. They don't want your problems being stacked on their shoulders as well. His company, the tourist industry, is under as much pressure as we are. People are losing their jobs in the tourist industry, the hunting industry, which also Saai is representing, the wine industry, which Saai, a small organization, is helping and fighting in a court case. We need the support of all the people, because the nucleus of the family, if that is destroyed, it's like taking a mother out of the kitchen. You destroy the heart of a family. If you destroy that nucleus, the future of South Africa will not be in corporate and mega farmers. The future is in the young generation of young farmers, small family farmers. And if you destroy their hope, if you destroy our hope as young farmers, there will be no hope for agriculture and the future of agriculture in South Africa. And it sounds ridiculous, but the future of food security in South Africa will lie in the hands of these organizations. That's literally, by taking our hands, they're keeping us on our feet.
Mm. No, absolutely agree with you there. I just put the link to Saai's website, the South African Agri Initiative. I put their link to their English website on the screen, but there's also an Afrikaans website vir die Afrikaanse luisteraars wat luister as julle ook net intik Saai. Ek dink as julle na die Afrikaanse skakel toe gaan, sal julle definitief die knoppie vind om dit in as jy na die Engelse skakel toe gaan, sal daar 'n knoppie wees om dit oor te skakel na Afrikaans toe ook. But yes, that's definitely a very strong message you have there, Herman. It's very important that people get behind these organizations, especially those looking out for the little guy. We see too much of people being in the pockets of the big corporations or in the pocket of government, and nobody sees. There's not a lot of money in standing up for the little guy, unfortunately. I think that's the nature of this battle.
No. Ernst, and a lot of people don't know how strongly these small organizations like Sakeliga, Saai are supported by organizations like PLE, AfriForum, Solidariteit. I've read just a few weeks ago that Adrian Basson went out and attacked Saai and calling us because I'm a member of Saai, and I'm proud to say I'm a member, and working with people like Tieu de Jager. I can't for the love of me say Mr. because it's Tieu, and Francois Rousseau, calling them the lapdogs of AfriForum. I think he directed that at Ernst Roots, and I was like, for the life of me, how can you call an organization that is actually standing for the rights of people? And what people should understand, don't know, is that Saai isn't just standing for.
This is coming from the ANC's lapdog, Adrian Basson.
and the best part is that Saai and AfriForum have been fighting for black farmers up in Limpopo. You guys can go and Google it. There's a huge story that they found. I think it was an avocado farmer. Go and look at their success rates. And people should stop racializing everything along the lines of race. And now I'm touching on politics. 150 black tobacco farmers in South Africa, which is part of the tobacco family, which is part of my family. There are colored tobacco farmers here in Oudtshoorn that can lose their income, that can lose their livelihoods. Those 150 farmers are not just supporting their families, they are supporting extended families. They are the new generation of hope that we have in South Africa, where we can say that this isn't just a black-white situation. This is a farmer situation. And I'm proud to say that there's 150 black and upcoming tobacco farmers in South Africa. And I will stand behind them. I'll stand in front of them, and I'll stand next to them, because he is as much important as I am important. And people must realize that Saai is also representing these black farmers.
But like I said, there's not a lot of money in standing up for the little guy. And
No.
I just find it very rich that the mainstream media in South Africa would attack an organization like Saai that is doing something that is not popular. They're swimming against the stream. They're going against the grain. And then the media just does the government's dirty work for them, siding on the side of power, while they should be the ones speaking truth to power, but they seem to be too busy speaking praise to power. But Herman, this has definitely been a very interesting conversation, and I'll definitely have you on to talk about the progress that you make, definitely in terms of tomorrow's court case as well. But then before we end, I just want you to maybe go into your thoughts for the future, and where, I mean, a lot of people are uncertain about where this ban is going. It seems like there's been challenges on this ban since the beginning of the lockdown with no results. People are feeling a bit pessimistic. People are feeling like there's no end in sight. If you use your crystal ball and you look into the future, what do you see coming from this? Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel?
I only see a light in the tunnel if we as South Africans can take hands, stand together, and fight everything from tourism, what is happening in the tourist industry, support each other, right down to the agricultural sector. Yes, then I see a future. But unfortunately, if we cannot stand together and support each other over all the spectrums of industries, if we cannot do that, then I'm afraid there's a bleak and a very dark future ahead of us. And we've seen now that we can do it with the tourist, what happened in Cape Town with the tourist industry, where people stood together and said, this is unlawful what you did. And I support the tourist industry. The only thing is they did the march in Cape Town. I wouldn't have mind to join them in Pretoria, because that's how serious I feel about it. And I'm asking every South African out there tonight that's listening to this live stream, and I'm begging you, we can, by using social media, and each of you, where you are sitting now, even if it's in your living room, your kitchen, your bedroom, please each make a video in support of Lift the Ban SA. Use the hashtag Lift the Ban SA and post it on TikTok, post it on Facebook, post it on Twitter. You can tag me at Herman J. Roos, tag at Lift the Ban SA, tag Tax Justice South Africa, tag Saai, tag AfriForum, tag Ernst that's sitting with me in the live stream. Guys, if each one of you are making a personal video, that is how our voice is carried to government. Because if our government is only hearing my voice, they can become deaf. But if 10,000 South Africans in 1 week can post each a personal video, government cannot turn a deaf ear. They cannot turn a blind eye. They have to listen. And we are hoping that this ban will be lifted sooner rather than later, that we don't need to go into court action, that we don't become a state where everything needs to be challenged in court, but that we as citizens still have the voice and a right to stand for what we believe in. Please, South Africans, I'm begging you, jump onto this, make a video, hashtag Lift the Ban SA, not just for us in the tobacco industry, the wine industry, the tourist industry, and post that video. Thank you, guys.
Herman, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show tonight. I learned a lot, got a lot of valuable perspective from an industry that I don't have personal experience in. But thank you very much for giving us your valuable time, even there from Oudtshoorn, finding a way to get the message out there, even from an unorthodox source. And also, thank you very much for everyone that tuned in. Thank you for everyone that submitted questions in the chat and also sending their messages of support to Herman. I think it's an excellent initiative, and I would definitely implore you to do what he says in regards to make your voice big. Make a video, make a post, share the stream if you want to get Herman's messages out there, and leave a like and a comment as well if you're listening to this when it's not live. And if you're new to the channel, you like these types of discussions, you can go ahead and subscribe for more of this type of content. But Herman, thank you very much for what you're doing. Thank you for doing your part, and also taking time to inform people. I know it must be a bit boring after a while repeating the same points on 3 or 5 shows a week. But thank you very much for your time. I think you're doing an amazing job, and thank you for really getting the word out there and doing your part. And I think that's what each and every one of us can do, is to just do our part. I think that's the very least you can do.
Thank you, Ernst. And I do just want to say thank you tonight to the restaurant here in Oudtshoorn, Karoo Pot restaurant. Thank you guys for allowing me to do this live stream from them. They were actually closing at 7 o'clock, and they graciously said they will stay open for me till 8 o'clock until the live stream is finished. So guys, when you're in Oudtshoorn, please come and support this local restaurant. Guys, please make a point to go to Karoo Pot. It is a lovely place, and you will definitely enjoy their tramazini. It is well made. Cheers, Ernst. Thank you. And thank you for hosting me tonight. And it was a pleasure to be on your stream.
Absolutely no problem. I think that's an excellent way to end it. I will definitely keep Karoo Pot in mind if I ever find myself in that part of the world again. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening, and God bless and mooi loop.